Glory to Jesus Christ, and welcome to St. Cyril and Methodius Ukrainian Orthodox Church. I'm Father Gregory, the pastor. It's Sunday, the 24th of September, and I wanted to talk to you today about something I had mentioned to the congregation last night at Vespers, the difference between living a life in which we imitate the saints and a life in which we look to the saints for illumination of the circumstances of our own lives. Often, we fall into the habit, I think, of looking at the lives of Christ or the Mother of God, the saints or monastics, and think, yeah, I've got to live like that. I try to imitate the way that they live. That's really not, I think, how as Orthodox Christians we're called to relate to the example of Christ and the Mother of God and the saints or monastic life. We're not called to imitate them. We're not called to try and do in a literal sense the things that they do. Rather, we should allow their lives to be a source of illumination for us, to help us understand the challenges in our own lives and how we, in the concrete circumstances in which we find ourselves, can be faithful to Jesus Christ. Let me give you an example of that, and let me use maybe monastic life. Often I find Orthodox Christians who are very enamored, very, very respectful, very, very taken by Orthodox monastic life, and they want to imitate the monastic life and to live that life as closely as they can within the circumstances in which they find themselves. Now, certainly there's nothing wrong with being pious. There's nothing wrong with trying to live as disciplined and a liturgical and ascetical life as we can as Orthodox Christians. Nothing wrong with having a very disciplined life of prayer. These are all, in fact, not only not bad, they're very good things. But often what happens is, in the individual's infatuation with monastic life, he overlooks the demands that are right there in his own life. Let me give you a couple of quick examples. A lot of times I'll have young parents come to me and say, "Father, it's so hard to pray. It's so hard to fast with our small children." And I'll ask them what they mean. It's like, well, the kids just require so much effort. I don't have any energy left at the end of the day to pray. And at the beginning of the day, they're up before I am. They need to get breakfast. They need to get dressed. They need to go out the door to school. And by the time that's over, again, I'm exhausted. And fasting, well, my children are young and there's so many foods they don't like yet. I know they'll like these foods later, but right now it's so hard to get them to eat. And they feel bad that they're not praying and fasting the way they think they should, and the way they think they should pray and fast is based on what they learn or what they've seen when they visited monasteries. Let's think about that for just a minute. Parents, young parents especially, have trouble saying long formal prayers, of reading the prayer book, because they don't have the time, they don't have the quiet. And yet that causes them to overlook the prayers that they say spontaneously when their young child is sick or fussy. For older parents, they overlook maybe the prayers they say when their son or daughter is really struggling in school, or maybe their child's heart's been broken because the kid they have a crush on is indifferent, or worse, just rejects their affection. Parents are just driven to great sorrow, and they utter a spontaneous prayer to God for the sake of their child. Or think about those parents who have struggles fasting because they have young children. Their fascination, their being enamored with fasting in monastic life, causes them to overlook that the purpose of fasting is to break that willful attachment we all have to satisfying our own stomach. And so they don't see eating cold leftover beanie weenies or finishing a half-eaten grilled cheese sandwich as fasting. It's like, Father, it's Lent, and I ate beanie weenies, or I ate a grilled cheese sandwich. And when you look a little bit, when I inquire a little bit more and discover, yeah, again, it was that plate of cold beanie weenies that their child didn't finish, or maybe they had some of the beanie weenies to get their kid to eat them. They ate that they finished that half-eaten grilled cheese sandwich. These are real acts of fasting. These are real acts of prayer. And they shouldn't be discounted. They shouldn't be dismissed. Because these are the ascetical challenges, the ascetical disciplines that those parents have been called to. I can multiply examples for you, but I think you get the point. St. John Chrysostom, in his treatise on the priesthood, at one point says that it doesn't really matter over much whether or not a priest keeps vigil. And I would add, it doesn't matter over much whether or not he is particularly good at fasting. But what Chrysostom says matters for the priest is that he love his congregation, that he love everyone in his congregation equally. Let me suggest to you that what Chrysostom says about the priest is true for each and every one of us. The purpose of our asceticism, the purpose of our life of prayer, is that we learn to love everyone generously and without reservation. In fact, we can even say that the true asceticism is the asceticism that moves us to love others without reservation. Our prayer, our fasting, our participation in the liturgical life of the church, all of these are absolutely essential, but they are all ordered to that one goal of loving the people that God brings into our lives and loving them without reservation, loving them sacrificially. In this process, Christ, the Mother of God, the saints, serve not as a plan to be followed, not an example to be imitated, but rather they illumine us. They point out to us the struggles that we all encounter, and they are a source of consolation and encouragement. Well, I've gone on quite a long time today. It is now 8 o'clock here in Mad City, and I've got to go get ready for liturgy. If you're here in Madison, why don't you come to St. Cyril Methodius this morning and attend liturgy? We're at 1020 Regent Street on the Isthmus in downtown Madison, and learn a little bit about what it means to love without reservation. If you're not in the Madison area and there's an Orthodox church where you are, why don't you think about visiting this morning? And of course, if you are Orthodox, well, stop watching this video, grab a shower, and hop in the car and get to liturgy this morning. All right. Thanks, everyone, for your patience. God bless you. Have a very good day, and I look forward to talking to you again next week. Bye-bye.